were training for Ironman triathlons, which is, by the way, stupid. A lake swim followed by a 5-hour bike ride on a Saturday, and then on a Sunday going out for a 3-hour run. And that, like, what? I don't even know who I was. Huh?
Lost me on lake swim. Yeah, I remember biking really threw me over.
So,
welcome to Babe, Take a Seat. I'm your host, Janine. If you've landed here, you're probably feeling overwhelmed and maybe a little unsure of your next steps. I've been just where you are now, and it's time to radically change the way women experience life after divorce, life change, and loss. Whether you're new to these life changes or you've been on the road for a while, we're a community of like-minded women who understand what you're going through. We'll talk about finding your voice, trusting yourself, and finding joy in the midst of chaos. So grab a coffee, find a cozy spot, and let's dive in to the beauty, the chaos, and everything in between. So welcome to Babe, Take a Seat. I'm glad you're joining us today. I'm your host, Janine, and I help women pivot with intention during divorce, menopause, perimenopause, and loss, all sorts of life transitions. And today my guest is Emily Barclay. She founded the Perimenopause Hub Support and Friendship on Facebook. And you also have a book, which I have, The Arg to Zen of Perimenopause, The Essential Guide to Navigating Perimenopause Your Way. Thank you so much for joining me. And tell us a little bit about yourself, Emily.
Right, where do I start? As you can hear from the accent, I am English. I live in the east of England with my partner and too many dogs. And as you said, I run Perimenopause Hub. There's also a website, perimenopause.hub.com. And what else? I don't know what you want to know about me.
Well, let's start with like a bit of your personal journey or your motivations. So could you share a little bit about your journey with all of these transitions and life changes and what motivated you to start this support group?
Yeah, of course. It was my partner and I had started doing triathlons, and we were training for Ironman triathlons, which is, by the way, stupid. And it's full on, and like sort of a lake swim followed by a 5-hour bike ride on a Saturday, and then on a Sunday going out for a 3-hour run. And that, like, what? I don't even know who I was. Huh?
Lost me on lake swim. Yeah, I remember biking really threw me over.
So I don't really know who I was then, but there we are. Anyway, I was the fittest I'd ever been, all those good things. And suddenly, and it felt like it was almost overnight. It wasn't quite, but it was sudden. I was suddenly exhausted and angry and gaining weight and not sleeping, but also exhausted and crying at random things, and just all sorts of stuff was just weird. And I was only 39, so I was like, it can't be a hormonal thing because I'm only 39. And as far as I knew at that point, menopause was like, your periods end and you're in your 50s, right? So at 39, obviously it couldn't be anything to do with that. And so I started going to the doctors, and they did lots of blood tests and all the stuff. And it's a really typical story. I didn't know what was going on. Nobody had any answers for me. Back and forth to the doctor, 13 different doctor visits, with all the associated blood tests and scans and all of the stuff, and tried various things. At one point, one doctor said to me, "You're stressed."
Oh my God.
Here's the leaflet for the wellbeing service. You can self-refer. And I was like, oh, okay, great. So I dutifully did as I was told and self-referred. And yes, you're stressed. I'm like, okay, good, lovely. And they're like, yes, you can follow these 4 weekly webinars to learn about stress management. I'm like, okay, I'll just do as I'm told, Yeah. And what I learned in those webinars, it's pretty big news, right? I learned that I should sleep better and exercise more. Brilliant. So I was like, right, still at this point, I was still trying to train for Ironman. So I was still trying to do all the ridiculous levels of exercise. And I'm like, So sleep better when I've tried all the sleep things and it's not working, and exercise more. I don't think there's room in my life for any more exercise.
Right.
Anyway, eventually, after kind of 3.5 years of going back and forth to the doctor, by this point I'd happened upon a lovely doctor. I went back again, and I'd been tracking by this point. I'd been tracking all my symptoms, and I'd put them all into this app, and the app didn't have a sort of a download function unless you went onto the paid version, and like I wasn't going to the paid version. So I painstakingly pulled all of the data out of the app and put it into Excel so that I could then spot trends in the data. And oh my God, there was the trend. Like, so once I had it in front of me, it was so clear. It was literally in the week before my period, I was just a complete waste of space, exhausted, useless, blah, blah, blah. I'm not meaning useless and waste of space in a negative thing against me, just that literally I just wasn't functioning in that week.
Right.
And it was just so clear. So by the time I went and saw this lovely doctor again, I was like, right. We both agreed it was one of two things, and we both agreed that those two things were either chronic fatigue syndrome or perimenopause. But obviously, because I had all my lovely tracking, I was able to say, well, actually, it's clearly hormonal, so it's perimenopause. Brilliant. Hurrah. An actual word. Life is good. I wasn't dead. Brilliant.
Yeah.
So I came home, thought, right, well, I'll just find some support groups and some, information and stuff. Nothing. Couldn't find what I needed. And that is where the Perimenopause Hub came from, because it was what I needed.
Yeah, that's so brilliant. First of all, I love that you tracked everything and that you self-advocated enough to get through that many appointments to know that something wasn't right. That's so you tap into your intuition and you know your body well enough to know that this isn't right or normal. I guess not. It is right, but it's not as normal what you've experienced. I wonder, your doctor must have been thrilled to see you come in with this long spreadsheet to say, like, here, we've got some data to look at, right? Would you recommend that women take that step if they're kind of curious about what's happening? When I talk with
100%.
women about, there's a lot of course, transitions that happen in this time of our lives, especially as a woman. And it's a time often of reevaluating your life and your direction, which can contribute to a lot of similar symptoms. And sometimes they get blamed for others. And it's really interesting to try to parse that out, right? Like a lot of relationship changes happen in your 40s and 50s. And so one of the things I help women with is identifying through their cycle, when are you feeling these shifts in emotions? So do you talk to women about that?
A lot. Like tracking is one of my most favorite subjects to talk about. And genuinely, I think when it comes to like going to the doctor or going to whatever practitioner, whoever it is you want to work with, whether you want to go to a nutritionist or a naturopath, or it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The more data you have to bring to that first appointment, the more you're helping them to help you. Yeah. Like, I know obviously the healthcare system in the US is different to the healthcare system in the UK. So I can only really speak from UK experience, but over here, our GPs have 10 minutes with each patient.
Maybe.
And maybe 10 minutes. And in 10 minutes, they can't do much. They are not miracle workers. They are humans with a huge amount of knowledge, but they are not miracle workers. So if we can turn up to that 10 minutes saying, okay, right, these are my symptoms, but also I'm noticing that they are way worse in the run up to my period. They are way better and actually have, let's say, 3 months worth of data to go to the doctor with and say, oh my God, the anxiety is crippling on day 26 of my cycle or whatever. And, all of those things, the more we have that information that we can give to the practitioner, the more we're helping them to help us. Like, we're not going in there going, well, I know better. We're just going, okay, this is the information that my body is giving me. And if I give you this information about what my body is giving you rather than just some words, can that help you to help me?
Yeah, that is. So they could never garner that much information in a 10-minute session with you. Self-advocacy is so, so important. And that is part of it, right? That tracking. That's fantastic. Go ahead.
Yeah. And, oh, it's a delivery. That's why the dogs are going mental.
Oh, do you need to jump and get it?
No. It's dog food. They'll have left it on by the dog.
Like,
the dogs will calm down in a minute.
Will they cut the bag open and serve themselves?
Yeah, they might do. Yeah, just going back to what we were talking about. Sorry.
Well,
I just think it's such a powerful thing to, because I see this so often in the Facebook group, people going, you know, I'm trying to tell my doctor that I know my body better and that they're dismissing me. When actually, if we've got that data to hand, the doctor can't as easily dismiss you. And, you know, that makes it sound like I'm slating doctors. I'm not at all. All I'm saying is, if you're, you know, there isn't enough education and research and stuff around menopause. There isn't enough knowledge among doctors. So actually, we do need to self-advocate. And if that means having your tracking, having your data and having everything ready to hand, that means that you're in a much, much stronger position to be helping them to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking
I'm
of
just going to tell a dog.
Oh, yeah, no worries.
Lydia, stop. If Lydia stops, everyone else will stop, you see.
She's there. That's great. What are some of the most common challenges that you notice that women face in the perimenopause group? And how does, I'm asking this, I mean, I'm in your group. I love your group. I'm in there as a participant, and I'm also in there as one of your experts. Actually, let's talk about that a little bit, because I think that's such a valuable piece that you offer. And I'll let you talk about the experts in your group.
So yeah, so that's the when I came home from the doctor and had the word perimenopause, I wanted to find help and support for me. And I could find some Facebook groups that were about menopause, but it was very much aimed at women who had reached menopause. So I was 42 by that point, and in these groups, the women were kind of in their 50s, and that was a very different life stage. Or I found groups that were one specific practitioner saying, here is how we resolve menopause. And I'm like, do you know what? I don't think, let's say, a nutritional route is right for everyone, or an exercise route is right for everyone, or HRT. You know, none of these things are right for everyone. So I figured that if I brought together like a panel of experts, it would offer choice to women to say, yes, I do want to know about HRT, but actually I want to know what foods are aggravating my symptoms. I want to know what exercise will help my body to stay strong, but without over fatiguing me. I want to know about holistic therapies that can support me. I want to know how I resolve all this sudden past trauma that has come back to kick me in the butt that I didn't know was there. You know, and so I started with like, you know, a doctor, a couple of nutritionists, a mindset coach. And I think the mindset side of stuff, I think, is just so important, to be perfectly honest. And so that was where it started. And then it's just, I mean, it's evolved of its own accord.
I didn't even mention it was 93,000 members now.
98,500 now.
98.5. I feel like last week it was 93. It grows exponentially. Yeah. That's amazing. It's amazing.
But yeah, so I felt that having access to a panel of experts, I felt was really important, because it's all well and good having a peer support group, but actually peer support can take, you know, sort of make its own kind of snowball and become kind of a whole thing in its own right. And actually, sometimes you do need somebody with expert advice to sort of hop in and go, back up, guys, back up. You know, we've got this. So that's kind of why we have the two sides of it, the experts, but also the peer support.
One of the things that I notice in your group, and I have seen many posts about other women who've noticed it, is it is so positive. And I know you have moderators that are making sure that we're staying on track, but it's such an incredible group, and especially such a large group. Everybody is so supportive, and this come from a place of understanding that no one person has the solution for everybody. but people are sharing. You really change the culture, I think, of Facebook groups. It's truly how I feel. I have not been a participant of another group that is like that is very forward focused on openness and acceptance. I think it's just fabulous. And you had to have
that was really important to me in the start. So in the very first instance, the kind of the key pillars that I wanted in there was kindness, because I just can't abide unkindness. It's something that I hate it when you go into other Facebook groups and you just feel your blood pressure and your stress levels rising as you see these arguments unfolding. I'm like, no, we're all, if you're in a perimenopause group, you're having a fairly difficult time probably. You're probably feeling quite sensitive. The least we can expect from people is that they be kind to each other. And frankly, if people can't manage that, then we're not the right group for them. And that's fine. They can go off and be bitchy somewhere else. That's absolutely fine. But they're not going to do that in my group. And the moderators are brilliant for keeping on top of it. That was the absolute key principle when I set it up. I also was adamant we wouldn't have discussions around weight loss.
Yes.
Because so many women, like the vast majority of women, by the time they get to their 40s, have tried every diet under the sun, have beaten themselves up about being the wrong size, the wrong shape, the wrong this, the wrong that. Every single woman is absolutely perfect exactly as she is. And I know it's only one little small corner of Facebook, but I want that within that one little small corner of Facebook, we aren't being bombarded with the fact that we should be in a smaller body, or we should be this, or we should be that. And that to me was really important as well. It comes under the being kind bit, really. And then the other sort of important one was that there's no such thing as TMI in the group, because, we are discussing some pretty sensitive stuff, some pretty delicate stuff. And I would hate for people to think that they can't ask about vaginal dryness or about sex problems or about, because those are just as much a part of it as hot flushes, as anxiety, as all the rest of it. And if people don't feel that they can ask about that in a social media setting where they're still kind of anonymous, even if their name is on there, they're not going to go and ask their doctor about it.
Right.
And I think the more we can normalize talking about every part of the female body as just simply a part of the body, you'd go to your doctor if your hand hurt, but people won't go to the doctor if their vulva and vagina hurt. And it's like, but it's just another part of your body. So to me, that's really important, that people feel that they can talk about that and then get this response of, oh God, me too. Oh, me too. Oh, this might help. This helps. This is what to ask your doctor for. If that can embolden even one woman to have that conversation, then we're winning.
Yes. Yeah. And you definitely are winning. I love the book too, I have to say. What a brilliant idea. And it's available on Amazon, and is it other places as well? And
just Amazon. Yeah, just Amazon.
And it's a compilation of yourself and your stories and experts, and it's like a reference book.
Yeah, pretty much. So it's 48 chapters from 40 different experts covering all things perimenopause. So, I mean, as a snapshot off the top of my head, we've got a chapter about sleep, we've got a chapter about blood pressure, we've got a chapter about relationship with food, we've got a chapter about my brain's completely gone blank, about divorce, because a lot of that happens, about anxiety, about alcohol, so obviously about HRT, but I found that most of the other menopause books out there generally are one or two people's voice and are either on the pro HRT side of the fence or the anti HRT side of the fence. I haven't found any other books that just go, do you know what? This is what it's about, and these are ways that you can help yourself. So in each chapter is written by the individual expert. It's intentionally kept in the English of where she is from. So if an expert is American, it is American English. If an expert is British, it's British English. And that was important because I wanted it to carry on being in their voice. And then each expert, you then at the end of each chapter, you've got a QR code to be able to go and then work with the expert if you want more information from them. And it all came about because we were going to have a little summit online, and I went, hey, we could have a book to accompany it. Let's do that.
That's brilliant. It's brilliant. And it does give, a voice to many and a lot of options. So this really, there's something for everybody in it. And I think that's,
and it's intention. And I do intentionally say in the foreword that it's a book that you dip into and dip out of. So if you want to read about sleep, you read the chapter on sleep. You don't have to sit down and go, oh God, I've got this huge book I've got to read. It's just like, what chapter do I need help with today? And no chapter is longer than 2,000 words. So there's not too much concentration required. Intentionally.
Very good. It's brilliant. What resources and information does the support group provide its members? We've sort of touched about that a little bit, but is there anything else you'd want to add to it? Is there, and then there's just the variety of resources that each of these experts have, right? Outside of the fact that you've got 98,000 women sharing their own stories. There's not a lack of resources and information.
No, and there's a lot more resource and information on the website as well. So at perimenopause.hub.com, there is lots of blog posts and more resources from the experts. And then we also have a YouTube channel, which has lots of interviews with the experts, like 5 years worth of interviews with the experts. So there's a lot of resource. Huh?
I'll list everything at the end.
If you search Perimenopause Hub on YouTube, you'll find it.
Okay, perfect. And I'll have the links. And nothing like being put on the spot. I'd also love to ask if you could share any stories or feedback from members on how the support group and your webpage and your YouTube and the interviews and all of these resources have impacted their lives. The sites seen it every day and the posts that people are so grateful for it. I mean, it is really an incredible community.
Yeah, we do get some beautiful posts every now and then with people just saying that it's their favourite group on Facebook, that it's the place where they know that they aren't alone. And it's lovely, when people have newly joined and they go, oh, thank you for having me. I'm finally not alone.
Yes.
And that just means everything to me because I felt so alone. And it was a horrible feeling. And I vowed that I didn't want anyone else to feel as lost and as alone as I did, in that 3.5 years of going back and forth to the doctor. So if people literally by virtue of joining and reading through a few posts go, oh my God, I'm not losing it. I'm not like whatever. It's actually normal. Now, it's not fun necessarily, but it's normal. Exactly the same as with puberty. It was normal. It wasn't necessarily fun, but we kind of all got through it. The difference was we knew it was coming and everyone around us knew it was coming and it was talked about and it wasn't a taboo. It's not taboo for a teenager to be stroppy. That's kind of completely accepted and normal. And then suddenly when you're in your 40s, there's this expectation that you can hold it all together despite going through just as many changes as in puberty, with your hormones, with your body shape, with everything changing, just like it did in puberty. But because you're now an adult, the expectation is that you can hold it together and that you're somehow unreasonable if you can't. When actually, that's not a fair expectation. We can show up differently. And I'm about to get onto a soapbox topic here, so bear with. But
I'm about to jump in and share a little bit about.
What I hadn't realised until relatively recently is that, so obviously, we're women, we get it that our hormones are changing throughout the month, and then as we're going through perimenopause, they're changing much more, and it's much more extreme when we have the fluctuations. What I hadn't realised is that men get like a hit of testosterone every 15 minutes. Hence, they are able to show up the same day in, day out. And we can't show up the same day in, day out because our hormones are doing way more stuff. And I just wish for a world in which it's okay that we show up differently every day. And it's okay that some days we're quieter, some days we're on it, some days we're hungry, some days we're not so hungry. Some days we want to go and run and jump and scream and shout. Some days we want to sit and watch Netflix, and that's all okay, rather than still living in this like society where we're expected just to show up exactly the same every day. And that's just not what the female body is trying to do.
Yes, absolutely. You touched on so many things. So I'm 52. And I experienced a lot of sort of that. I like to say it's like the onion that is peeling, right? That is triggered by the different hormonal changes. And they start, oh shit, I have to deal with that now. And what is this? And oh my gosh, my hugest. So I will also note that back in my late 30s, I had a hysterectomy and they left my ovaries. So it was sort of like, we're not really sure when you're going to hit menopause or perimenopause, but good luck. So I can see now, like reviewing other people's experiences, that a lot of the stuff that I experienced over the last 10 years were quite related to peri. And there was, I had a lot of feelings of, why are things changing? Like, especially the physical. Why I've never, experienced this shift in my body, or anxiety was a huge one for me. I had no idea that I had anxiety, which I can see back now. I probably had underlying anxiety. But I had no idea that perimenopause could like be really one of those triggers. I went into my, my doctor and I said, this has got to be hormonal, because I have never felt this I've never physically felt anxiety. And she took one look at me. We had a conversation and she said, oh, their hormones have dropped. You have no progesterone. You need to, she was able to identify a lot of things quickly. And we did tests and we did all that stuff. And I've tried a lot of things. But what was fascinating to me was we don't talk about it, right? My mother was also kind of surgically pushed into menopause. So I didn't have that experience in my history. And I think her mother was as well. So I didn't understand how this would roll out. And it is the long rollout. And then there's that communicating with your partner about it. Like I talked to my partner about it a lot. And I said, if you could understand, like, I think this is all related. And we had a conversation, and he's so supportive and so kind. And he said, that's all related to peri. Like everything you say is, oh, is that peri? And it is like it really comes into all facets of your life. And I think that's one of the things that you're right, we don't talk about. Now, I'm going off on a tangent now, but that was one thing that was most shocking to me was that anxiety could be, and past traumas that would come up and like sort of rear their head again. Hello.
Totally. Like I have had to resolve past traumas that I thought I had long since buried, but I hadn't resolved them. And so they came back
to your toes.
Buried them, yeah. And who knew that wasn't going to work? But I think when we draw the comparison with puberty, it makes so much more sense that we, so many things were explainable by the changing hormones in puberty. So many things, and actually, there are other things potentially that could be going on. And I'm not for a second saying that everybody who,
Sure.
ticks the boxes on some of and that's actually why I so strongly recommend tracking, because by virtue of tracking you will see really quickly if there's a hormonal link to it, because it will be cyclical and it won't be constant. So for example, anxiety or low mood or fatigue or whatever, they will show up more at specific times in your cycle, even if you don't have the bleed any longer,
right?
Whether that's because of a hysterectomy or whether that's because of birth control or whatever, there is still a cycle going on. And if those symptoms are hormonal, they will still have a cyclical aspect to them. And if they are not hormonal, they will be pretty constant. And I think that's a really important thing to get across. So if you are experiencing anxiety or low mood every day,
right, very different.
It may not be a hormonal thing. If it feels like it's every day, but then you start tracking and you also track the good days, which is really important in tracking. You do have to track the good days as well. And you start to see that actually you have some really good days too. You just haven't remembered that you had the good days because we focus on the fact that they feel crap. Then, you might start to see that there is this cyclical thing, in which case it's probably hormonal. Whereas if something is constant, it's probably not hormonal and it probably needs investigating differently. And, the symptoms that we see in perimenopause mimic, some of the symptoms overlap with, things like thyroid issues, things like vitamin deficiencies, like low iron, low vitamin D, whatever. But those will be more constant.
Mm-hmm.
So it's where tracking isn't just about helping the practitioner to have the data about you. It also helps you to see what's what, and to see that there are some really good days, because you know, we do, just as I said, you know, we all have a tendency to go, well, I just feel crap all the time. And then actually, if you identify, let's say, 5 or 6 things that you particularly are going to track initially, because if you try and track everything all at once, overwhelm immediately, jobs are good and you're not going to do it. But let's say you pick the sort of top 5 symptoms that are really, you know, getting in the way of life.
Mm-hmm.
Start tracking those, but absolutely also track the good days. So track the days when you have energy just as much as track the days when you have no energy. Track the days when you're feeling positive and upbeat. Track the days when you're feeling low or feeling anxious, and see if there's a correlation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is so important to recognize, and also just for your own to feel that you have, not just having that legitimate holistic view of the cycle, but to understand that it's not all, that doesn't necessarily all be shit, as you said. Like, that is so,
it's not all doom and gloom.
Right.
Also, as you were saying about talking to your partner about it, one thing that I have recommended to people in the past, which, you know, helps for some people, doesn't for others, you know, we're all individual in this, but actually having a thing on the fridge, right? Like literally with magnets on the fridge with a good day, bad day, average day sticker, so that everybody in the family knows that today is that day, or it's that day. And actually, do you know what? Then you haven't got to explain yourself to people. You haven't got to keep repeating yourself. But if you have an open discussion, you know, with your family, and you're able to say, right, guys, I'm going through this whole hormonal shebang, and, you know, I'm going to have some good days and some bad days. So what we've got this chart on the fridge. So when you get in from school or wherever, just have a quick, or in from work or whatever, have a quick glance, and just, if I've actively said on there that today is a bad day, please just come in and do the chores that you need to do, and just do the stuff. If you can see it's a good day, we'll go and do some fun stuff. We'll go to the beach. We'll do, you know, whatever. If you can see it's a bad day, please just be mindful of that. And actually, I think we've all been kind of conditioned as women that we're meant to show up the same every day and be there for all people and always put ourselves last and whatever. But actually, that's not cool. We don't deserve to come last after everybody. We deserve to have equal standing to everybody else in the household, everybody else in our friendship group, whatever. Mm-hmm. And if by having this open discourse around it, we can claw back some of that equality, then I think that can only be a good thing.
Completely agree. As you were describing that, I visualized my kids walking into the house and kind of, you know, trepidatiously walking into the kitchen and saying, the dishes are clean and mom's in a mood.
Hey, where are we today?
No, I think it's a brilliant idea. I really do. And it also opens up
open conversation. And it's just like, guys, let's always treat each other with kindness anyway. I'm back to my kindness thing. But there are going to be some days when I'm going to need a little bit more kindness than on other days. And, you know, I don't want to be nagging you to do the dishes and I don't want to be having to chase my tail. So can we just all be proactive here? Because we all live in the same house and blah, 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 you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. I know a lot of women in this time frame have kids who are a bit older and who might be entering puberty as they're sort of exiting. And that is a really interesting dynamic in the house, you know. It's also
nice work, Mother Nature.
I know, right? I mean, but I think it's actually a great opportunity to educate our children that doesn't end. Like, it's not, you said it before, we are expecting puberty. We expect this shift in teenage years, and then it's sort of like, boom, you're done. No. So I think it's important that that those conversations are had and started at home. I mean, I talk with my kids openly about it. I have a son and 3 daughters, and we talk. I probably talk a little bit more than they'd like me to about it, but I think it's important.
I think it's like with any of these things, it's a subject that has been taboo for too long. And I just think the more that any of us who are comfortable to talk about it do so, the more it normalizes for other people to talk about it. I mean, I have, obviously, like, this is an audio thing, so people aren't going to know, but I've got ridiculous colours in my hair, so people locally...
No, it's filmed too. Did I not tell you we're on film?
But so people locally will, sometimes come, oh, you're the perimenopause lady, whatever, and they will like open up, and I have some really raw conversations, like in the freezer aisle in the supermarket and stuff, and I am 100% for that, because frankly, if that person has finally found someone to whom they feel they can talk about it, now I'm not their doctor, I can't advise on what they need to do, but if I can listen, and so they've overcome that first step of being scared of not being listened to, then the next step is easier.
Yeah, it is. Gosh, yeah. There's so many other things to talk about. I'm already thinking in my head, how can I parse this and tag more? I always end, seeing as you're my second guest, I always end, but I always plan to end the podcast asking a question about intuition, because intuition is the root of all of the work that I've done for the last 15 years. And everyone has intuition. Some people I say it's a natural born gift. Some people just haven't unwrapped it. And then there are people who have unwrapped it and then wrap it back up again, right? But you mentioned intuition as far as understanding your body. So when you, Emily, listen to your intuition, what are 3 words that describe how you feel when you trust your intuition?
Okay, 3 words for when I trust my intuition.
How do you feel when you trust your intuition?
I'm just trying to think what the words are. I know how I feel, I just don't know what the words are. I feel right. I feel kind of not forced, if that makes sense. So when I don't, it's almost easier to say how I feel when I don't trust my intuition. When I don't trust my intuition, it feels like everything is a bit of a struggle. It feels like everything's a hurdle to clear. Whereas when I'm being in my intuition,
there's ease.
The way is clearer. The way is easier. It makes more sense. And I just feel more calm and contented when I'm in my intuition than not. If I'm not, then I'm just fighting myself all the time.
Yes. Perfect. Thank you.
And I mean, going back to what you said about it being a gift that sometimes people unwrap and then re-wrap up, totally did that in the past, learned that the hard way.
Me too. I'm talking actually, and I'd love to have you back if you're interested. I'm fascinated with the impact that trauma has on intuition. And so I'm doing a lot of work with women about that, and putting together some programs, because it really does. Intuition is when you can tap in when you're feeling grounded and trusting yourself. There's life lessons that we come and learn, right? Mine, all my life has been trust yourself, trust your intuition. And I have very loud intuition most of my life, but there was a period of time I was in a, difficult relationship that it just I tuned out, that it just got very quiet. Yeah. So I find that fascinating. That's a whole other subject, but it does relate to perimenopause. Before we go, how can you mentioned the perimenopause.hub.com? What are all of the ways people can reach you? And I'll also put it in the notes. So go.
Okay. Perimenopause.hub.com is the website. The Facebook group is, if you just search for Perimenopause Hub Support and Friendship, or just search for Perimenopause Hub, There is also a Facebook page, which is Perimenopause Hub Official, but much less happens on there because it's not private, whereas the group is private, so people can discuss whatever they want to. Instagram is Perimenopause Hub. YouTube, Perimenopause Hub.
Perfect, perfect, perfect.
Oh, and for the book, the easiest thing to search for is Emily Barclay on Amazon, and then you will find it.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time, and I always love talking with you. Yeah, and I just appreciate you and everything that you've done. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks for joining. I hope you enjoyed it, and you'll join us again next time. You can reach my guests through the links in the comments below, and you can always find me at JanineTripodi.com, on Instagram as Janine Tripodi, and on Facebook and YouTube as Janine Tripodi Coaching. If you prefer to watch this video, jump on that YouTube channel, Janine Tripodi Coaching. Have a great day.